Alrighty, it's been a little while, so I wanted to do another top 50, and this is for the powered cube because that's what we've been playing most. And let's get to it. These are in my estimation, the top 50 pack one pick ones. And to be clear, it's not how I would exactly draft it because, for example, I would take Urza, and this goes from Black Lotus number 1 to Urza number 50, 1 through 12, 13 through 24, etc. So the top of the pile is better than the bottom of the pile. And yes, I would take Urza, for example, or Spell Pierce higher than some of the cards I have listed on the list. But this is about where I think you should be drafting. And let me explain it. So I think number 1 isn't close anymore. I think Black Lotus is the best pick one, pack one. And I've had extensive experience doing so because I've opened about 10 of them in the past month and a half, 2 months. You get, first of all, just a busted acceleration, right? Where sometimes you play, something like a Caves of Chaos Adventure or One Ring on turn 1. Second, there are a lot of combos, including with cards that no one else takes. So obviously like Underworld Breach or LED, like that sort of combo is Lotus can sub in for LED, but Auriok Salvadors, it's a card you don't get for free, but you get pretty easily because there's only 2 cards that make you want to put in your deck, Lion's Eye Diamond and Black Lotus. And even with LED, you're not usually first picking it. So Black Lotus just has great combo potential and is a busted card and just can make any deck incredible. So I would pick one, pack one, Black Lotus over everything. Pick 2, I've got Mox that taps for any color. The fact that it taps for any color means it's just going to be awesome no matter what. I think it's close with Time Vault. That's number 3 on my list, and it's dethroned Time Walk for number 4. But to some degree, this doesn't matter, this first pile, because if you open a piece of power, you'll take it. And if you happen to take, let's say, Mox Sapphire over Mana Crypt, I think that's fine. If you take Time Walk over Gleemox, I think you'll be fine. These cards are all really busted. But this is the order I would take them in. And then Time Vault number 3, trying to pick up Voltaic Key, Manifold Key, or Tezzeret Cruel Captain. Sometimes Sahili also can sub in. Again, very strong card. And when you get it early, especially pick one, pack one, you're not going to get cut on it very much. And it's just going to work out great. I, of course, love first picking Time Walk and looking for Tameo, the blue-green Planeswalker. You've got Eternal Witness, or just like a kind of like assertive deck with cards like, say, Fable the Mirror Breaker, or any Planeswalker, you just Time Walk just adds up. Plus, it's great whenever you just cast it. It's just a great card. Similarly, Ancestral, I like pick one, pack one a lot because you can just go out of your way to draft cards like Snuff Out and Swords to Plowshares and Memory Lapse. Just cheap interactions, all you want when you open Ancestral, because I think some people, rightfully so, would rather take Mana Crypt or Soul Ring or even a Mox over Ancestral and just draft a proactive deck and have busted acceleration. I think that there are more decks in pack 3 would rather open a Mox than an Ancestral, but pick one, pack one. If you take Ancestral, you can kind of work around the fact that you're not going to have busted acceleration by just having all these cheap interactive spells and drawing more of them. Mana Crypt and Soul Ring are obviously very close. I still think Crypt's actually slightly better just because that first turn gives you just this busted initial opening, turn 1 Fable of the Mirror Breaker or something like that. And if you draft these, you can just draft a lot of 3s and 4s or what you really want to do. The Mox is in color order: blue, black, white, red, green. And I don't think that is actually up for too much debate. You could debate Pearl versus Jet. If you really like playing white, then sure, you can move that up. I think blue's still better, and I think Ruby and Emerald are a clear 4th and 5th. Then there's my favorites, Tellurian Academy. So this first pile, and the reason I'm doing piles of 12 is because this first pile was 12, and this first pile is definitely there's a pretty big line between these and the rest. And you're just lucky I didn't get Mox Opal onto this list, but I couldn't countenance that. These are the busted power cards. These are the ones you really want to open, and if you open one of these, you'll be very happy. Second pile, still very good cards. These are the best non-power cards in the cube. So I've got Academy, White Plume, and 4th Year Lingus, as well as Force of Will and Flash. These top 5 are pretty comparable, I would say. Pick one, pack one. Academy obviously takes you in a really nice direction. White Plume and 4th can go anywhere and are very strong. Force is good in any blue deck, and it's just an incredible card. If you can just play your 3 mana play and then force their 3 or 4 mana play on their turn, depending on who's first, often that's just a game winner right there. When you're playing combo, this is the number 1 card you don't want to see. It's just a really good card. The best way to beat Force of Will is just to play a fair mid-range deck where your cards are all worth about the same, because then Force is going to be less good, especially the lower curve you are. Boros decks, yeah, sure, getting their White Plume Forester to Seasoned Engineer Force is pretty bad, but when you're leading on Ocelot Pride into Glimmerlands into a 1-drop plus a 2-drop, let's say a Guide of Souls and like a Cathar Commando, like Force of Will doesn't do much against there. Yeah, they trade 2 for 1, and you spent 1 or 2 mana. It seems fine. Flash, if you take this early, you're looking for Atraxa, World Spine Worm, Woodfall Primus, Vaultborn Tyrant. These are some of the better ones to hit. Sin, Spear's Punishment, and you can also use this a little bit as a discard outlet where you flash in Archon, which doesn't do that much, but then you reanimate it or Shallow Grave it. Pick 1, pack 1 flash, also very, very good. Mana Vault's great. It's colorless. It's busted. It's not as good as the power, but still, turn 1 Mana Vault, turn 2 5-drop or 4-drop. That's a very good way to win, and it also plays really nicely with the keys if you end up there. Bowmasters, I think, is quite a bit better than Hull Breacher as the Draw 7 Punisher. So the Draw 7 Punishers are Bowmasters, Hull Breacher, Leovold, and Narset, and there's a pretty big dividing line between Bowmasters, then Hull Breacher, and then the other two are like a bit further down. And the fact that you just cast Bowmasters and it's great goes a long way. So very high on Orcish Bowmasters. I have it slightly above Thoughtseize and Psychic Frog, though all of these black cards are very good. Thoughtseize is just a great interactive spell, and Frog is a great threat. Broadside Bombardiers is one of the cards that, at this point, everyone's played with this enough who've played a lot of Cube to see how busted it is. You want to make sure you have a lot of cheap trinkets, Thraben Inspector type cards, but even if you don't, it's great. And like sometimes you play this and sack your 1-drop to kill their 2 or 3-drop and kind of get tempo. Is very good at killing planeswalkers. Or you just draw it in the late game and they just die because you throw a Solitude at them and they take 7. Broadside Bombardiers is just quite the card. Swords to Plowshares, I think it's comparable with Dismember. Yeah, some people, Mac for example, thinks that you should pick 1, pack 1 Dismember over Swords, and I don't think that's an unreasonable argument. It really isn't. It's a colorless card. I would really never criticize you taking Dismember, but Swords is also 1 mana, kills anything, costs you no life, gives them some life, who cares, and exiles. So I really like Swords. Library, we've gone back and forth, but officially it's number 24 on the list, so that settles that. I do think Library is good. Sometimes you can lose for it being too slow. The key with Library is cards like Swords to Plowshares, like Dismember, Solitude, Memory Lapse, again, just, Spell Pierce, Snuff Out, just cheap interaction. It's kind of like Ancestral where you're giving up speed in order to draw a bunch of cards. Seasoned Engineer is a step behind White Plume because it costs 4, but still is the best of the other initiative creatures. Just the fact that it's always unblockable and even gets an Explore trigger the turn you play it is just incredible. So you want to draft, obviously, an assertive deck when you take this card. And Dismember, yeah, very good colorless removal spell. Can't really go wrong. The One Ring, good in any deck. It would be nice to have some acceleration into it, but you don't really need it. It can also be kind of the top of your curve, and it's just a really strong card. I think it is better if you have good ways to close out the game or combos, because I've had experiences with like blue-white control where you just get a One Ring up to 3 counters, and all of a sudden you're like, what do I do now? But it's still a card that often leads to you winning the game if you cast it. Demonic Consultation is an interesting one. And this is kind of a stand-in for Thassa's Oracle too. Everyone always takes Consult first because Consult is stronger. You can play it in a combo deck without too much of a combo because it's just a risky tutor, though usually you wouldn't play it without Oracle or Jace. And if you get Thassa's Oracle, then it's black plus blue win the game, and that's a really strong combo. So good card to take early and worth looking out for. And of course, the way you do it is you hold down Control, you cast Oracle. Once Oracle resolves and the trigger's in the stack, you cast Consult. That way, if they counter the Consult, you don't lose the game. If you cast Consult, then cast Oracle, and then they counter the Oracle, you just lose the game, so you probably shouldn't do it that way. Though, it does open you up to Tishana's Tidebinder, but that's going to get you either way. And then I have Demonic Tutor above Reanimate and Vamp and the rest of these cards here. It's close, but DT's great. It's strong enough that you play it in a fair deck, though obviously it gets better the less fair your deck is. And then Reanimate. Even if I personally am not that high on Reanimator, you can see Entomb is the 49th here, I still think Reanimate is a great card. It's a 1-mana spell that puts a creature into play. It doesn't even have to be from your graveyard. This card is just a really strong card. Caves of Chaos Adventure gets docked a little by being red. Red is, I think, the 4th best color in the cube, with green being a clear 5th. And it's a great card. Don't get me wrong. I would just take some of these other cards over it, whereas Seasoned Engineer is a bit higher. Vamp Tutor still really good. This one you do want to be in combo, but there's a lot of combo in the cube, so I think Vamp is a pretty reasonable early pick. I love Balance. I think this card's actually pretty underrated. It's just such an effective card if you can play a lot of artifacts and or planeswalkers. And for 2 mana, you're often like killing 2 to 3 creatures, making them discard a card, sack a land. And that's not even mentioning when you go and have like the perfect like Mox Sensei's top, bobble, balance, you down to 0 cards sort of thing, which you can do too. So plus it goes into the deck that most consider the strongest and funnest artifacts. Well, by most I mean me. Mana Drain and Memory Lapse are here to kind of represent a bunch of counters like Remand, Mana Leak, that Force Negation, that sort of thing. Have them all around here. I didn't want to take up too many slots, but I do think Drain is better than the 1 blue counters early, though once you're further into the draft and you know what your mana situation looks like, you might not be able to swing Drain, whereas you might be like Jeskai, but Memory Lapse is much more castable. Minsk and Boo has dropped some slots. I think being in the 2 worst colors actually does hurt quite a bit. It's still a really strong card. If you cast this card and it's unanswered, you will win the game. Nothing really outraces it. It like by itself, it hits for 4, then next turn hits for 4 and draws 4 cards after throwing for an additional 4. So, I mean, that's a pretty big game. It is a 4 mana play that's in 2 colors that you don't want to start in, which is my main concern with it, though it is obviously very splashable. Tinker is another card I go up and down on. I do like it, but I've had some bad experiences. I think, you know, Tinker, you want to get Portal to Phyrexia, Bolas's Citadel, Blightsteel Colossus. Those are like the main ones, and I think it's worth taking early, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did this in a couple months that Tinker moves even further down or off the list. Flooded Strand represents all the fetch lands, and as much as I like taking lands, I generally think that lands don't crack the top 50 with the exception of fetch lands, and or if you're like, I mean, once you're already in blue-black, you really need Underground Sea. That's a different story, but this is pick one, pack one. Not unhappy to take a fetch land, but of course not incredibly thrilled. Atrox as a stand-in for Archon and Gristlebrand and all those. I think this is the best one. This is good with Flash, Sneak, Reanimates, even Natural Order, so it's a wide range, plus it's like somewhat castable, and it's a good card. I mean, you can start with the Reanimate stuff. That's totally fine. Tameo is a fantastic card as well. It's the blue Ragavan, which Ragavan actually barely didn't make the list. That one I've also kind of fallen a little on, though obviously it's still a really good card. Tameo is a 1-mana blue play that threatens to do a lot more. It's great with cantrips. It's just good with ninjas. It's just a good card. I love a Spell Pierce. You don't see me pass this card very often, and I think that's actually correct. I just think Spell Pierce is really, really good. It's a 1-mana play that counters a lot of 2, 3, 4 more mana plays, and does so in the early turns, and even in sometime in the middle or late part of the game. So, I do love me a Spell Pierce. Snuff Out, also very good. So what is this, 42nd on the list? Well, I think Snuff Out is a really great free removal spell. It's worse than Dismember or Swords, but that's a high bar. It's the best removal spell outside of those. So take your Snuff Outs early. Pyrogoyf, I had really good experiences with this card. It is a 4-mana play, so I don't usually like taking those super early, but I think Pyrogoyf is really good, and it's splashable, which is nice. I do love me a little Teferi as well. I don't pass this card very often. I just think Teferi Time Raveler is fantastic, and it just does a lot of the things you want. Cuts off their counters, gives you a little tempo with a bounce, has some combos. You can +1 it and do cool things like balance on their turn or wheel on their turn. Really, really neat little card. Fable is a kind of an archetypal 3 drops here in red. It's a very strong card to play. In the late game, it can be a little slow because you do have to wait a turn before it does something, but this card, if it's not countered, it's like going to be a great exchange for you. It against removal spells, it puts 2 things into play that are both really important. Getting to discard 2 and draw 2 just gives you some great filtering, and you get the mana from the Goblin Shaman making treasures to cast the new cards you get, so you can often discard lands. Fable's really good. It goes in a lot of different decks. Animate Dead, another really strong card in and of itself. Like, you just don't need to be playing Reanimator to play this card. I just always play it when I'm in black. Man, it's a good early pick as well. It's also, Felia is, I think, the best white creature outside of the 2 initiative creatures. It's close with Solitude. They're both very good. But Felia is just, it has so many combos. Even without combos, it like removes blockers or pumps itself. And with combos, it's just excellent. You're flickering any of your creatures with a good ETB. You can flicker something like a Portable Hole to reset it, One Ring. You can flicker Mana Vault. Like, there's just a lot of cards that work really nicely. Even Planeswalkers it can work on. So they steal one of your things, like the Animate Dead, one of your things, you Felia, attack, flicker, it's just incredible. And Solitude's a free spell. Fury and Pyrokinesis, I think, are close on the list, but I think Solitude is better than those. And then we have Entomb, which is, I still think a very powerful card and one you should take early, even if I've had some bad experiences lately. And Urza, which I really like Urza. I think Urza's great. So this is the top 50 for me as of now. And, I'm pretty confident about the listing of the ordering of the power in the first row. These get a little dicier because you're not usually hoping to be like first picking a Teferi or like Felia or Solitude. You want to be first picking one of these cards, though obviously not everyone can do that because there's only so many of those cards to go around. But if you start with one of the cards on this list, I think you're usually in pretty good shape. And also, some of them are pretty big payoffs. So, like, if you first pick Flash or Entomb or Urza or Tinker or Academy, those cards only work really, really well in their specific archetypes. So you do have to keep that in mind, whereas first picking like Thoughtseize, Bowmasters, Bombardiers, or any of the power can go well in any sort of deck. Let's talk about some of the near misses as well, because we had these are some of the cards that I was working on. Don't worry, no green cards. I was just like, okay, what are the best green cards in the cube? Are any of them near top 50? The answer is no, not even top 100 probably, but that's just the way it is. Some of the best cards not on the list, Chrome Mox as just more acceleration, Time Twister / Wheel of Fortune I'm really high on, but I think fall a little below the list. Ragavan's another one, and Ocelot Pride, both that I've kind of moved down, though they're both very good. I just think that the fact that sometimes in the late game these don't do that much, and most cube decks are ready to at least interact with a turn on Ragavan, though you do get some free wins for sure. Hull Breacher is obviously a fantastic card, but as much as I've moved up on the wheels, part of that is I've moved down on Hull Breacher because I feel like other people should take the wheels. You shouldn't be getting 7th pick Time Twisters in pack 1 very often. So Hull Breacher goes down in my estimation, especially since I think Memory Jar and Time Spiral with Hull Breacher are a little bit clunkier, and I'm not as excited about that. Remand clearly is good enough. It's just Remand and Mana Leaker on that list. Then there's Brain Freeze and Underworld Breach, which I really do love that combo, but most of the time I really wouldn't recommend you be first picking either of those cards, even if obviously the payoffs can be there. Speaking of which, LED is a card I think is actually the best of those 3 cards because it works with Echo of Eons, it works with other combo decks, but even then, I'm not usually going to be first picking LED. Fiery Confluence, Ancient Tomb, Oko, and Fire Covenant are great cards. I think they just fall a little bit short. One of the cards I barely cut was Deep Cavern Bat. If you've seen me draft, I actually draft like it is in the top 50. I think I'm inclined to take Bat like over Entomb, for example, but that's a little bit of my preferences. Bat over Solitude I probably would also do. I just think black is very good, and I like drafting the disruptive black decks. But yeah, Deep Cavern Bat, excellent card. Don't sleep on that one. Barragoyf, Parallax Wave, Basalt Monolith, Skull Clamp are all very solid cards, and Skull Clamp and Monolith are good build-arounds, with Barragoyf and Parallax Wave being pretty good rewards for being in those colors. Deluge, Gristlebrand, and Palace Jailer also barely missed the cut. And then the rest of these are a little bit further back. There's like Lotus Petal, Containment Priest. Well, Mana Leak is part of the Remand package, which is just, I didn't want to put 7 counters up there. They all do about the same thing. Cantrips, I think, are a little further behind. Preordained Ponder, consider all those. Strip Mine has fallen quite a bit. I do think you should play this card. I just don't have this card in my deck because I'm not willing to first through fourth pick it very often, and other people certainly are. I just don't think the lands combos are that good most of the time, so it's fine, but it's not a premium card anymore, at least not in my opinion. So let me know what you think. Let me know what I missed big on, what I left off, what I have too high on. I am curious, but I like this list, and I've really been enjoying the Powered Cube. So that'll do it for this one. I figured checking in on top 50 was a good place to be. And you know what? I'll get back to our drafts tomorrow. We got more magic coming soon. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps out the channel, and you won't miss a single draft.